Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonz. Joining me today we have Punts.
How are you guys?
And returning from an injury to his pride, Swansrule100.
Welcome back to me.
Now, we're coming off a pretty handy 26-point win over Port Adelaide. It was a bit messy in times and their kicking certainly kept us in the contest. Swansrule, what are your thoughts on the game?
I'm pretty positive about the game. I get a bit sick of hearing the reviews about how Port Adelaide got their mojo back or what have you. I mean, we did them by 4 goals, so they can't be that good. I know there was a few things to work on, and disposal efficiency sometimes a bugbear. And my biggest bugbear at the moment is probably entries inside 50. You've got 2 gun forwards up there, and the delivery to them is pretty pathetic. When was the last time Tippett got hit on the chest by someone other than Franklin? That's frustrating to me, especially when he's playing out of the goal square. And we never seem to have any crummers. But apart from that, I thought there were some good signs. I really liking Rowan off half back. I thought McVeigh played a good captain's game. I know I bagged him out a bit, but he stood up. And I was really positive about Jeddah's game, especially after half time. I know he does make a few mistakes, and his kicking lacks a lot of depth, especially that goal hit the line and he just misses targets, but he did so many 1%ers. I didn't see the number, but that's what I felt last night in the wet. He had some smarts about him. I thought it was a bit odd that they tagged Hanbury given his first game back, and I was pretty grateful for that because they let some other people off the chain, but good solid win. Cunningham was pretty good. Pike was alright, but
Only one player had more 1%ers on the weekend than Jedah for our team, and that was actually Pike.
there you go. So I just think he does some smart things, and I think last night sort of showed his advancement. I know people get into him at times, but I think there's no doubt in his place in the team's mind. I thought Goods was good early. I think he was involved in our first few goals. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he was.
Just that class he has, but I think he fades out of games a little bit, of course, as other people say, which I don't mind, but I'm still bullish about him going another year personally. When I see a game like that, Lloyd was pretty good as the sub as well. I thought he came on. We probably need to work out the Reed Tippett Franklin scenario a bit better because Reed's not quite involved in the game. He's not really a ruckman. I think he's covering for Tippett's injury, and I'm not sure it's helping his career. And the last person I mentioned, Craig Bird, that first half, his disposal was pathetic. I don't even know what the stats were, but he was like a deer in the headlights. And then he's so slow, he puts himself under pressure and panics, and I just wanted him to be subbed off at half-time, but to his credit, he came back a bit. But a good win. Let's move on and win the next couple. We should have top 2 soon up now.
Well, in regards to Jedah, I actually think he had my highlight from the weekend, that play-on decision where he stole the ball out of the poor player's hands.
He finally took the game on a bit. He always looks like he could run 20 metres further, but he did a few times in the end, which I thought I liked. I think he's got his confidence up. The only other person I didn't mention, of course, was McGlynn. His energy is amazing. He does butcher it a bit, which gets unnoticed by people, but you can't fault his endeavour. He wants a premiership, and I think he deserves one. So hopefully we get it for him.
Well, I'll go through my review before Punts dissects the entire team. Look, personally, everyone's been talking up McGlynn or in the media Parker's performances a little on the weekend. Personally, I actually still think Kennedy was best on ground. He's had a quiet few weeks, but on the weekend, 34 disposals, 15 contested, hitting at 65% efficiency. He had a few 1%ers as well and a couple of nice tackles. He was really good on the weekend, and he was back getting clearances where he belongs. I was really surprised that they sent Corn straight away to Hanbury, first game back, and Hanbury did only add 13 disposals, but he didn't spend the entire game on the ground, obviously. He only had 70%. 13 disposals from 70% time on ground is pretty good, and he's was involved in a few scoring chains, 4 from what I can see here, and had a couple of nice real handballs from congestion. I think he's going to get better before the year ends out. My main worry from the weekend, we subbed out Tippett, obviously, due to the fact that it was better for side balance, and it helped having Lloyd come into the game, who did really well as sub in the last quarter with 8 disposals. But we need Tippett to get some bit more game time. He's lacking match fitness at the moment, which is obvious. He's played, I think, maybe 11, 12 games of football in the last 2 years. But, look, I think the main thing we need to really focus on before getting to finals now is getting some game time into players like Tippett and Hanbury. and hopefully giving Goods a rest. As you said, he's fading out of matches at the moment, so I wouldn't mind giving him a week off. Anyways, Punts, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, well, you guys have pretty much covered everything. I think the main issue again this week, which has happened a lot lately, Essendon last week, is our forward entries. We have this $1 million forward line and we can't seem to hit him on the chest. As SR said, I can't remember the last time Tippett actually let out and we hit him on the chest, or even, I guess McVeigh hit Buddy on the chest on the weekend. But not going to go too much into it, but I watched Tex Walker today. I watched Roughhead yesterday, how they present and lead at the ball. I don't understand how we don't have a structure, something like that with Tippett to lead out to the ball. Every time we kick it to Tippett, there's one arm up in the air and, he's pretty much standing in the goal square with two blokes on him. I just don't understand how we can't get a forward structure. I'm not saying, Adelaide are the best team going around, but I think they would have hit Tex up on the chest about 3 or 4 times today leading at the ball. I don't understand how we just can't get a forward structure, something like that, or Hawthorn, but I won't go too far into it. I thought McGlynn again was, like last week, just puts his head over the ball. I swear to God, he thinks he's 6'4" sometimes, but his endeavours just, second to none. Parker was good at times. That run-down chase on Ebert where he turned over the ball on the wing was a crucial part of the game. And as you guys mentioned, I reckon Jetta was good. There was a couple of things that he didn't do too well where he kicked it and it stayed inside an hour 50 and that rebounded out. But a couple of them turnovers that he caused were really good. And a couple of times I think he could have gone for a little bit more of a run, like on the wing when Carlisle was in front of him. There's no doubt in my mind that he could outrun Carlisle. He probably should have taken it on a little bit more. Who else was good? I thought Rampy started off a little bit. He looked like he was shitting himself when he was on Wingard, but he ended up beating him at the end of the day pretty comfy. I thought Laidler was a little bit shaky on need a couple of times. He not too suited to the real small forwards. Who else was? As you guys, you've mostly covered it all, but pretty much was a wet game after half time, and we scrambled with a win. And every time they put pressure on us, we seem to bounce back. With Tippett as well, we need to get more game time into him because he's not moving. It doesn't look like he's moving too freely for me. And the other thing is Reid. I just think forward, ruck, back. It's just, I know they say that he plays such a crucial part, and he probably, he might do, but just, another 6 possessions for the game. I don't think his impact's enough, and I think he might be a little bit. I know Wayne Carey said it during the week, and everyone says, "Oh, the media don't know crap," but sometimes you have to agree with it. He just looks lost at the moment. Like, I know he played his best game 4 weeks ago, whenever it was against Carlton, but that's when Tippett didn't play. So is he scared being up forward with Tippett and Buddy in the side? Does he not present? Does he? It's a little bit. He's a little bit iffy at the moment. I think he should go back, but that's my opinion. But overall, we got the 4 points. We went over there, a hostile crowd, and come back with the 4 points, and now on to Richmond, and hopefully taking nothing away from. Oh, sorry, not Richmond, St Kilda, taking nothing away from St Kilda. But I hope we actually give them a bit of a flogging this week. So I'm sick of seeing other sides absolutely pants other sides, and we just sort of give a 6. I know we flogged Geelong, but get over the line by 6 to 8 goals. I really want to put them away this week.
Yeah, Punts, I trust you actually watched the reserves game on the weekend. So do you mind giving us a bit of a review on that game?
Yeah, well, Mitchell started off like he normally does. He must have had 10 plus in the first quarter. Kicked a goal, hit the post in the first quarter, and he was in everything around the clearances with his handballs, etc. He played 3 quarters, and obviously they just wanted to get him to the 3 quarters. Like last week, played him a half, so he was probably one of the best. Towers and Membray were a little bit quiet. Membray come into it in the last quarter. It was moved onto the ball a little bit, so he got a little bit more of it and kicked 2 goals while resting forward. My best on was probably over the 4 quarters. Tommy Mitchell was probably best on, even though he only played 3. But over the 4 quarters would have been Tommy Walsh by probably a country mile, to be honest with you. He just absolutely killed him again. I know people say, it's an AFL and he's not playing on decent forwards, etc., etc. But you can only do, you can only play on who you play on. So, he was even rebounding and just never seems to get beaten in a one-on-one contest. I know he's a big guy, so he was probably best on over the 4 quarters. Hewitt was a little bit more quieter this week, but stepped it up in the second half. And Callum Mills, he had a quiet first quarter, but after quarter time, he would have had at least 20, 25 plus, and I can understand why they're cracking the shits about that kid, because he's 17, underage, and he's playing against men on the weekend and didn't look out of place. I'm telling you, he looked better than half the team. And Tau's done, as I said, a couple of good runs, and Jones' second quarter was really good. His rebound off half back was really good in the second quarter, and a bit of the third quarter. Probably the best ruck on the ground would have been Nankervis. He kicked 2 goals, and he mainly rucked. They didn't really put Naismith in the rucks that much, so whether that's getting him more time in the middle to maybe a debut, maybe not this year, or just in case Pike does go down and we've got no backup with Derek's out for the year, so giving Nankervis a little bit more time in the centre, maybe getting his fitness up, etc. They had a pretty decent, easy win. Ryan O'Keefe was pretty much Ryan O'Keefe, in and under. Foot skills let him down again. Pointing the finger a little bit like McVeigh. Lewis Rob Thompson was nowhere. He might have had 5 possessions for the game. Looks like his best is behind him, but that's about as much as I can say out of the twos.
Okay, from players in the twos at the moment, who can you actually see? Obviously, we had travelling emergencies and Biggs and Laidler on the weekend. Just out of it, people who played in the twos on the weekend, can you see anyone contributing it towards senior level this year? If we have the rest of the player, do we want to give anyone game time?
Well, I was thinking, I brought it up, you know what I mean, as people were suggesting on the board, we don't need to rest players, blah, 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 but I thought Goods he looked pretty sore at the end of last night's game. He was clearly limping in the last quarter, and he doesn't have to go out and play against St Kilda. If we can't beat St Kilda without a 34-year-old, I know Goods is Goods, but if we can't beat St Kilda without Goods, well, there's something wrong. I think we should give Membray another go and give Goodsy a week off, because I'd probably rather give him a week off this week than against the Western Bulldogs or Richmond. Even Teddy Richards, maybe the two oldest players, or the oldest players, give Teddy Richards a week off. Listen, I know Nick Rewalt's a sensational player, but he's probably going to blow up Teddy Richards or Walsh and make an impact anyway. So I'm not too fussed. About that. Nick Rewalt's an elite runner, so he's going to blow up Teddy Richards or either of them. And Walsh is in fantastic form anyway. So if that was the case, if they did want to rest Teddy, I think Walsh could easily step in and play a role like they do, and maybe a Membray for Goods. I know people have said about Jack's ribs, but for some reason on the weekend he was dunking players. So if he had broken ribs, well, he's a tough bastard, because I thought he looked. Last night looked a lot better around the contest than he has in previous weeks. So whether that's due to form or that's due to getting over his injury, I don't know. But yeah, if it was me, I'd maybe give Teddy and Goodsy a rest, and that's about it. But they're the two players. I know Biggs is absolutely flogging them off the half back in the twos, but I don't know if they'll rest anyone. I don't think they'll rest Shaw. He'd been out for a while now, so he might be a little bit unlucky.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, actually, looking towards the St Kilda game on the weekend. It's going to be a really interesting matchup to see how exactly we line up. I think we will pull a few changes. I do think Goods will get rested. There's no way he's going to play every game towards the end of the year.
I don't think it's arrogancy. People say it's arrogancy. It's arrogancy when Fremantle go against St Kilda last year and leave everyone in Western Australia and, debut 9 players, or, you know what I mean, something like that. Yeah, that's arrogancy. They'd already had top 4 locked up, so they weren't too worried about it. I don't think resting 1 or 2 players and bringing in people that have been performing well in the twos is arrogant. You know what I mean? Like these guys have been. It's not like as if these guys haven't been getting a kick in the twos and they've just gone, we're playing St Kilda. Let's put Goods, Teddy Richards, Joey Kennedy. 4 players out or 5 players out. Like resting 1 or 2 players shouldn't determine the result at the end of the day. Let's be honest, they rest Teddy Richards and Adam Goods. If that determines the result, well, that's just shit house depth, in my opinion. So it's not being arrogant at all, I don't think, anyway.
Well, Geelong have been managing players for the last 5 years. What's wrong with it? Essendon managed Fletcher. He's 38, but Goods is 34. If his body's sore, give him a rest, I say.
Yeah, exactly right.
It isn't arrogance. It's just smart list management. That's all
Exactly
it is.
right.
Like, we'll probably be a
if it's
better team
arrogance,
this
though?
weekend
Like,
if we
Nick
rest
Smith
Goods.
probably could have played on the weekend. No one cares. Like, just pull him out at the last minute if you're that worried about the perception and say he had a sore back or something. Any old shit.
Yeah,
Just
exactly right.
make it up. Who cares?
Well,
I
with
don't care
Goods'
what
age,
people
he
think.
probably already has a sore back.
Guy's got one knee. Like, just rest him. I
Yeah.
want him fresh for a final. I don't care if he plays the last
People
3
say,
games.
I want to get percentage this week. Yeah, I know, but to be honest, if we're going to finish on top, we're going to finish on top. Like, it's going to work out. Whatever works out, I'd rather have players fit for finals than drag in like we did that. I know that last year was a little bit different, but I was at the Western Bulldogs game last year where it was to the end of the year, and that looked like they couldn't even run out that game. Like, I know we won by 6 goals, but they looked absolutely stuffed. And I remember a comment coming from Craig Bird or Josh Kennedy after that game saying they were absolutely belted. Like, you don't want that going into finals again, and that's why Geelong have been so, good. They've managed their players, and as I said, you don't have to rest 10 blokes, but a couple of blokes are sore, like a 34-year-old Adam Goods or a 31-year-old Teddy Richards. Well, give the blokes a rest, pull them out at the last minute if you don't want to be too arrogant. But if it comes down to not winning a game against St Kilda because you're resting 2 of your older guys, well, our depth's pretty shit house in my opinion.
Yeah,
Especially
agree with
the
that.
Goods.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bonz.
No, that's all right. Keep going at Swansrule.
No, Goods is a handy contributor this year. He's not a star player. Like, okay, Ted's probably our best defender, so pulling him out maybe is a bit risky when Rewalt's such a gun. I still would do it, but Goods he has minimal impact on a game. He's just the cherry on top. As Punt said, we don't need him to beat St Kilda. That's just the reality. Membre could have another run and say he's ready in case he need it for a final. Because we can't bank on these 22 guys not getting injured. We've seen how it can hit us at any time, so let's be prepared.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I reckon Membre showed good signs a couple of weeks ago. He led to the right places, and he just looked like he went a little bit quiet after quarter time, but it was his first game, late call up in, you know what I mean, in your debut. Obviously, playing against a 400 game of Dustin Fletcher for a side that you bagged for your whole childhood. So he's probably had a little bit of nerves, obviously. As you said, if something happens to Goods, you'd probably think that Membre is the ideal replacement if something were to happen to Goods in the final, something like that. So he's got to be prepared. And as you said, if you're going to get you're going to get double, aren't you? You're going to give Membre a go, where if he has to come in a final, he's a little bit more prepared, and you're giving Goods a rest for his knee to be ready for finals. I don't understand why you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and the other guy I would like to see rest, if maybe it doesn't have to be this week, but before the finals, is still Kennedy. I know he's on that streak, and I know he could win the Brownlow, what have you, but I want him fresh for the finals, and he gets worked like a dog every week. He needs break.
He gets hung off every single week. There's about 2 blokes hanging off his shoulders, and as you said, I'd rather a premiership medallion around my neck than a Brownlow medal.
Even if it's just to sub him or something, sub him at 3/4 time 1 week at least. Just stop. Like, we rest Tippett and sub him off. We manage Franklin. Why don't we manage the workhorses in the midfield a bit better?
Yeah, well, that's what it comes down to. You get beaten in the midfield.
Or even a game where maybe Kennedy's rested up forward a bit more, just to get him. He can play up forward and actually do quite a good role.
Yeah, but they just want him for them clearances, don't they? As soon as he goes in the middle, we lack clearances.
I'd like to see someone else go and get some of the ball Kennedy's asked to do every week, just on the off chance we don't have him one day. That's all. These guys are getting silver service from him.
Yeah, exactly right. As I said, Hanbury, I don't think is obviously not going to get a rest. Now he needs to get back some form. But Joey Kennedy, maybe a Teddy Richards are Goods. I can't see an issue with it.
But the same people who will post about our great depth and it's hard to fit the team into the 22 every week, get up in arms if you suggest resting a couple and seeing what the depth's like. I don't understand that. It's just, it's baffling to me. I think just about every team's better at managing their players than Sydney. When I think about it. Yeah,
well, it was poorly managed last year, and it was a perfect example of the last round. Like, they had sore blokes. If we were going to finish fourth, it didn't matter of that last round. It didn't matter. We're always going to finish fourth, but they took in players. You know, I mean, Shaw done his now. I know that was, that he was already playing previous to that, but there was blokes what they could have rested if they knew the midfield was tired. They could have rested that game, and what ended up happening, I know you can't help it, but Hanbury ended up, doing damage to his knee, and he wasn't right after that game. Shaw done an ACL.
Mitchell.
Yeah, Mitchell. Like, he could have rested a few blokes in that game and never had an issue. We're always going to finish fourth. That just pointed out like how bad the management was last year, in my opinion.
But having said all that, I still think I expect us to rest no one. In all honesty, yeah. I bet Goods does play on the weekend.
I reckon Goods won't play this weekend unless that he wants the last game against Lenny, and then he'll get rested against the Dogs the week after.
How many games is he? 200. He's 350 now.
He won't make it, will he?
No, he won't make it unless he plays on next year.
No, he's only 5 games off.
Oh, yeah, 345.
He's on 345.
So we've got to play a minimum 3 finals if we have a good
So whether that changes his mind if playing this week or not might be a thing. If he's got 5 games to go, what have we got? 4 left in the season. 3. 2. 4. Yeah, that could change his thinking as well. You never know.
I know it's naive, but I'd like to think he ultimately thinks, well, if I don't get to 350 and finish on 349, who cares? And Kennedy loses his streak, who cares? Or misses one game and get a Brownlow vote. It's all about the premiership, but I guess maybe they do care. They're only human. Maybe he wants 350.
Yeah. Oh, as Longmire said, he's not in the rest of blokes in this arrangement. So, as you said, we'll probably make one change and it'll probably Smith in for later, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think it'll be Smith in for late, and I reckon Goods will have a rest this week. I don't know who will bring in for him, but I think Goods will get a rest. The way he propped up pretty sore, it looked like his knee was hurting him a bit on the last quarter. I can't see him playing this weekend.
Yeah, but then he came back on.
I can't see him playing this weekend.
I bet you $10 he plays.
You already owe me 20.
He did probably, but didn't he? He seriously looked probably has.
I know. I thought he would stay off, but that's another thing. Well, why didn't you just keep him off unless the game got on the line or something? Yeah. Same when Hanbury came back on, then he was out for eternity.
Yeah.
Do some stupid things sometimes.
Okay, well, from the St Kilda matchups point of view, who do you guys see taking Rewald on the weekend? Teddy or Grundy?
Grundy. No real reason, but that's because I've probably been trying to eat. And if you're not going to rest Ted, at least ease the workload a little bit. Make Grundy take him first. Or probably sort of tag team it. Anyway, there's only really one target down there, unless they push him up onto the wing.
Okay, Punts, who do you see taking Rewald?
I think Teddy will take him. I think Rewalt gets up the ground a lot, and Grundy's more of your stay back, goal square sort of one-on-one sort of player, and Rewalt tries to blow you up with his fitness. I think Teddy will take him if he goes high off the ground. Probably not, but maybe even a Rampy if he gets up the ground outside of 50. Rampy might take him when he's outside the 50, but I think Grundy will take Stanley, and Teddy will take Richards. I remember last year from memory, Jack Stephen absolutely tore us a new one. He did last year.
Yeah, he's actually got a decent record against us.
He tore us a new one. So maybe I know he's had a pretty bad year with injury wise. Maybe they put McGlynn to him. Pretty good matchup. Both pretty quick inside ball winners. So maybe throw McGlynn onto a Stevens and obviously Lenny Hayes, let him do what he does, and I don't think there'll be too many mastermind decisions this weekend.
No, agreed.
Their three best are still probably Hayes, Montagna, Rewalt. They're 3 of the 4 oldest or something, aren't they? Apart from Fisher, who seems to have disappeared.
He's actually been playing in recent weeks and doing pretty well.
Yeah, he's come back the last couple of weeks.
I have to be honest, St Kilda the one. I would think they're the side I've watched the least this year. They just bore the pants off me. Them and Brisbane, I think they're the 2 shittiest teams I've seen. And I know Brisbane has hiked up a little bit till today, but St Kilda are a god-awful team.
Yeah, well, that's another thing too. I'm sick of sort of, I know a win's a win, 4 points is 4 points, but I wouldn't mind taking nothing away from St Kilda. I think we should really work on our forward entries this week and getting an even spread of goal kickers and actually hitting Tippett or someone on the chest leading up. I wouldn't mind seeing just once through a game and actually put them away this week. I know people talk about percentage, blah, 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 but we really, we should put them away. It should be, as I said, taking nothing away from them. At least a 6 to 10 goal win, surely.
Yeah, it feels like our percentage is good because our defence is so good rather than putting the foot on the throat.
Yeah.
I'd like to have this game won by half time and then just roll on with it. I'd really like to see a 100-point win. You'd like to see Tippett kick 4 or 5 and really get his confidence up and Buddy have a day out, that sort of thing. Some excitement from that.
Yeah. Congrats to Buddy too on his 200th this week, even though the 100 and whatever it is, 80 odd have been with Hawthorn, but still 200
do you think he was held back so it was a home game? Or?
Well, I mentioned it on the board, which was a funny thing. It was just funny how Membray's family were in Sydney. What a coincidence they were in Sydney on that weekend that he debuted, and what a funny thing that Franklin missed, and now his 200's the last game at the SCG of the year. They're not the game at the SCG this year, so it's always about the money sometimes. I guess, they're not going to throw away 4 points and a risk of not playing Buddy against Essendon, but just it was a funny thing that Membray's family were in Sydney that weekend. He was debuting and Buddy missed, which makes it the very last game at the SCG of the year. Buddy's 200th, to get a bit of a crowd there, knowing that St Kilda probably aren't going to draw that big of a crowd.
Yep.
It'll be interesting.
I'm not too unconfident for this weekend, but actually I'm pretty confident for it. But that being said, I don't want us to get too cocky. While St Kilda have been pretty poor most of the time this year, they have shown on certain occasions that they can be a somewhat competent football team. Look at their performance against Fremantle, for example. They weren't bad on the weekend against the Dogs.
John Momire will bring up tomorrow in the press conference. I can almost guarantee you. We've seen St Kilda play some really good football this year. It was only 2 weeks ago that they smacked Fremantle by 70-odd points. We know what they're capable of.
And they've still got some champion players who've played in grand finals.
Yeah, it's exact words will be. We've seen what they're capable of 2 weeks ago against Fremantle. So we won't be taking this game lightly.
I don't think they will either, though.
No, I don't think
between the fans taking it lightly and the players. I don't think us being confident makes a shit of difference.
Yeah.
If we don't win them, fuck. We've got to beat this rabble. Surely we win the last 3. Maybe Richmond give us a problem, and the Dogs I think would be only 30-odd points, but
Dogs are good Etihad Stadium, so I'd be happy walking for the Dogs for, as you said, your normal, 4-goal win. Something we're a 4-goal side better surely than Western Bulldogs. So, at Etihad they're a sort of a 2-3 goal better side at Etihad. Western Bulldogs, but no way you'd be taking the Western Bulldogs. And as you said, you're not going to take any of these last three teams lightly. You just can't afford to do it going into finals. But as you said, I'm confident. Surely you're going to win the last 3.
Yeah, I'm confident because I know the players will have the right mindset. After I think the GWS loss in some ways maybe helped us, as embarrassing as it was. It's helped them something to lean back on so they can see what happens if they're arrogant. But time will tell.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so you guys, your short thing, worst nightmare, and tip for this weekend? Punts?
Me? I'll go Punts.
All right. Sure thing, Buddy. I'm going to say Buddy kicks 6+ on the weekend. I think being his 200th, I can no doubt see the players kicking it to him if he's got 6 blokes on him. They'll be looking for him flat out. It's just they do it normally every week when it's not his, big game. Being his 200, they'll probably look for him even more to try and turn it on. Highlight package, so he'll kick 6+. That was a sure thing. Worst nightmare, obviously. I say it every week. It's 3 weeks out from finals. No injuries. I just don't want any injuries. And I think if it's dry, I think we'll get at least a 50 to 60 point win.
Okay, Swansrule.
My sure thing is I think Buddy will get pinged for in the back at least one time this week after getting away with that bloody shove on the weekend. And he's trying to shove him under the ball every bloody time. They're going to watch that really closely this week, and I expect him to get pinged a couple of times and then get pissy and frustrated. Worst scenario, I guess, apart from injuries or actually losing the game, would probably be the worst case scenario is probably not to win it by enough to get above Hawthorn, who should probably lose or only just beat Freo. I think we should get top spot back this week. I'm going to tip us by 85 plus. I think we'll really run over them this week.
Okay, my sure thing for this week is for Tippett to kick at least 4 goals. I reckon he'll find a bit of touch at the SCG. And I'm not confident on St Kilda's defensive matchups for him. And also a second sure thing may as well, Hanbury to get at least 24 disposals and find a bit of form outside of finals. My worst nightmare, going to go on with what Punt said, any more injuries. We have another injury or two, especially to our midfield or to our defence before the end of the year, and we may have a problem or two come finals. And my final tip will be the Swans by only 40 points.
Jeez. Is Adam Schneider still play, or is he?
Yeah, still playing.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, it's another sure thing. So for the screen for Schneider. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. I'm Bonz. Today I've been joined by Punts, and in his fantastic return, Swansrule100.
I was a bit like Hanbury. He's come back a bit flat.
Okay, thanks guys, and have a good night.
Bye.